in a really good location. I will point out to you in a few minutes' time the main shopping street. So there's good shopping, lots of things to do around your ship. And again, as we turn around, I'll point a few things out. But let me start by giving you just a short introduction to our history. Our history started here at the end of the 9th century. This was when our ancestors, the pagan nomadic Hungarians, arrived here and settled down here. And the next important historic landmark was the year 1000, when our first king, King Stephen, carried out the conversion of our nation into Christianity and founded the Christian monarchy, the Christian kingdom of Hungary. And then in the following centuries we had good and bad periods following one following the other. First, a period of improvement and development which came to an end with the Tatar, the Mongol invasion in the 13th century, which was a total devastation, and the whole country had to be rebuilt after this. And then a really great period followed, the 14th, 15th centuries. This was the age of Renaissance, when our country really flourished, especially during King Matthias's reign. I'll tell you more about him when we go and visit his church over on the Buda side. And shortly after his death, we fell under Turkish rule, and then a century-and-a-half long Turkish period followed, a very damaging period. Our beautiful churches were converted into mosques, the population was decimated. Perhaps two good things that the Turks left to us were the Turkish baths and the Turkish coffee. I really can't think of anything else. And then at the end of the 17th century, we got liberated from the Turks by the Habsburgs. I'm sure you heard a lot about the Habsburgs in Vienna. What this meant was basically they took us over. So then more than 200 years of Habsburg rule followed throughout the 18th, 19th centuries, all the way up until the First World War. I will continue with the history, but let me just point out to you this interesting building on your right. This is the Whale of Budapest, a new cultural hub with art galleries, exhibitions, shops and restaurants. If you've seen the movie The Martian with Matt Damon, the NASA headquarters was this building. The movie was filmed here in our movie studio, and if you watch it again, just look for this structure. You will be able to recognize it both inside and outside. So again, the more than 200 years of Habsburg rule brought a lot of revolutions, wars of independence against them. They were always crushed by the Habsburgs, but there was one big revolution in the mid-19th century, also put down by the Habsburgs, but then 20 years of negotiations followed, as a result of which a compromise was made between Hungary and Austria, and that was when the Austro-Hungarian dual monarchy was created. We had two capitals, then Vienna and Budapest, and that was also when the Emperor Franz Joseph and his wife Elizabeth Sisi, they were crowned to be the King and Queen of Hungary. This happened exactly 150 years ago in 1867, so this is a very important year, the beginning of a beautiful friendship between Hungary and Austria. If you look across the river, on your left, the red-roofed building is the Technical University of Budapest, which gave the world a lot of famous scientists, inventors, Nobel Prize winners, professors. You can also see the Gellért Hotel and thermal bath complex on the other side, exactly opposite from us. If you'd like to go to a thermal bath or to swim and be in the cooling, refreshing waters on this warm day, you can go there. This will be the nearest one to your ship. All you have to do is walk across this beautiful bridge in front of us, Liberty Bridge, and within 15 minutes you can be there. Oh, you can also see the Statue of Liberty on the Buddha side, on the top of the hill. Over there it's the female figure with the palm leaf in her hand. I will get there in history when and why it was erected. But to go back to the monarchy times, the 1867 coronation was the beginning of a big urban development taking place mainly here on the Pest side in the 1870s, 80s, early 1890s. A lot of things were built, many public buildings, avenues, boulevards. So basically Pest became the big city that we see today during those decades. And it all led up to one very important year, 1896. This was the year when Hungary celebrated the 1000th anniversary of the Great Conquest. Our ancestors came here and settled down here at 896. So in 1896 we celebrated those 1000 years. And we call this here, see those birds with their wings stretched out. This is our mythic bird. We call it the Turul bird. T-U-R-U-L is how we spell it. This bird appears in many of our ancient myths and legends, just like the phoenix bird in your ancient stories. So this bridge used to be called Franz Joseph Bridge because according to the legend, it was the emperor himself who hammered the last nail into this bridge back in 1896. So we'll talk more about this this year and the significance at our first stop, Hero Square, because the whole square was also built for this 1000th anniversary. Then if you move on to the 20th century, the first next to the neighboring countries, to Romania in the east, to today's Ukraine in the northeast, to Slovakia in the north, Austria in the west, and Serbia and Croatia in the south. So we still have a lot of Hungarians living in all these countries, and this issue is still a very timely and a very sensitive issue, at least with some of our neighbors. As far as the Second World War is concerned, Hungary entered a suicidal war on the side of the Nazi Germany in 1941. Shortly after that, we wanted to step out of the war, which was no longer possible. So Germany invaded us or occupied us in 1944, quote-unquote liberated from the Nazi Germany by the Red Army of the Soviet Union, marking the beginning of 45 years of communism. The statue that you see on the top of the hill on your left was erected at the end of the Second World War to commemorate this quote-unquote liberation. Now it is just a universal symbol of freedom and liberty. During those 45 years, there was one attempt to break free. That was the 1956 revolution. Maybe you've heard of this. The revolution was crushed, and we'll talk about this later on as well. 7 years, ladies and gentlemen. And this was our history in a nutshell. We've covered 1100 years of history in less than 10 minutes time. I try to make it short and simple for you, but I think even from this brief summary, you can see that we've been through a lot of foreign influences. The Tatars, the Turks, the Habsburgs, so many revolutions put down, two world wars lost, losing 2/3 of our territory, 45 years of communism. They all left their mark here in the mindset of our people, in our architecture, in our language, in our cuisine. So you can spot these influences in many different ways and forms. We're still very close to your ship. We just made a U-turn here, so if you take a look on your right-hand side, maybe those of you are sitting in the front part, in the first half of the bus, you can see it. The others will also see it in a minute or two. There is a building with the red and yellow bricks and the colorful tiles, the greenish, yellowish tiles. This is the Grand Market Hall. If you'd like to do shopping, this is the best and the nearest shopping. This is like a 5-7 minute walk from your ship. Your ship is in front of us, basically on the other side of the Green Liberty Bridge, but I don't mean the Buddha side, north of the bridge on this side. So you can easily come back here. Here you'll find everything from our national spice, the paprika, to sausages, salamis, embroideries, leather products, Budapest t-shirts, fruits and vegetables, everything really. I'm talking about the building in front of us. It's mainly a cash place, so be prepared to have some cash with you. If you don't have cash, they have ATMs inside, and they also have exchange places because our local currency is the Hungarian forint, but they also accept euros and dollars. The approximate rate of exchange is 300 forints to a euro and about 280 forints to a US dollar. But again, you can pay with those two. But if you'd like to have some local currency, they have exchange places inside the market hall. And if you take a look on your left, where you see the Burger King sign, main shopping street, okay? The main shopping street is on your left-hand side. It goes parallel with the river. So you can walk along the shopping street. It basically ends up here at the market hall. This market hall is one of the several big market halls. It has a beautiful wrought iron gate or door, front door. So just take a look on your right and you will see how spacious it is. It has 3 levels or 3 floors. There's a basement section, the ground floor that you'll be able to see from here, and there's an upper floor as well. So again, you'll find here everything. They have a food corner, a self-service restaurant, there's a grocery store underneath, I mean in the basement section. So now, if you take a look on your right hand side, look through the wrought iron gate here to the right.
Wow.
You see how big and spacious it is? So you can definitely come back here this afternoon, or if you're extending your stay in the next day or two. So this is one option while you're here. And this is the small boulevard, ladies and gentlemen. We have the Grand Boulevard and the small boulevard. There are two C-shaped rings on the Pest side. These boulevards, and this one too, also dates back to the end of the 19th century, the 1870s, 1880s. So all these buildings around apartments, so people live in these buildings. Most of these apartments are owned by the people who live in them. Renting is not a very widespread practice in Hungary. People try to avoid that as much as possible. It's considered to be a waste of money, basically. About 90% of the real estates are owned by the people who live in them. If you wanted to buy an apartment in one of these buildings for a 2-bedroom apartment with a living room, a kitchen and a bathroom, you would pay somewhere around 150 to 200,000 US dollars. Of course, we have more expensive locations and less expensive locations as well, so I'm just giving you an average price for these apartments. If you look straight ahead, you can see a church ahead of us to the right. This is the biggest Protestant church we have. It's a Calvinist church. Hungary is predominantly a Roman Catholic country, so that's the main religion, but the second biggest denomination is the Calvinist one, and this is again the biggest non-Roman Catholic church. The square in front of us is also named after the church and after Calvin, so this is Calvin Square. You will see a statue of John Calvin, the father of Protestantism, on your right hand side. In front of the church, he's holding the Bible in his hand. This year we're commemorating the 500th anniversary of Protestantism or Reformation. That's when the new Protestant denominations were formed with Luther and Calvin. So this is an important year in that respect. And you can also see these mushroom-looking structures on your right-hand side, glass metallic structures. We have an underground stop here. Would you like to hear about public transportation?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a fairly extensive network. We have 4 metro lines, lots of trams, buses, electric buses, and I would highly recommend that you use our public transportation as opposed to sitting in a traffic jam in a taxi, which can happen these days because we're going to have a big thing coming up this weekend. We're going to have the opening ceremony for the FINA Swimming World Championship taking place on Friday, so there's a lot of traffic situation, a lot of restrictions, so it's very unpredictable, you know, where you can go and how long it takes, but the public transportation still works pretty well. I will also explain to you how to use it, or how much the tickets are and all that, but I also want to point out to you the building on your right hand side, a beautiful building with the Corinthian columns. This is our National Museum, the Hungarian National Museum. There is a temporary exhibition on the 500 years of Reformation, and there's a permanent one about the Hungarian history. So if you'd like to know more about one or both of the above, you can come here. And there's a statue in front of it on your right hand side. This is János Arany. He was a Hungarian writer and poet. We call him the Hungarian Shakespeare. He wrote a lot of ballads and dramas like Shakespeare did, and he was also the one who translated Shakespeare. So when we read Shakespeare in Hungarian, it's through his translation. Some more words on the public transportation. You have to have tickets. You need 1 ticket per ride per person. So for a round trip, for the 2 of you, you need 4 tickets. You buy them at the metro stops. The nearest one is just by your ship, so it's a very short walk. 1 ticket costs about 300 forints, which is €1 basically. And you can also buy a daily pass. If you're extending your stay, you may want to buy a Budapest card. You can buy it for 24 or 48 hours, which gives you unlimited access to public transportation and discounted tickets to the museums and baths and all that. So it depends on how much time you have in Budapest. But again, the tickets that's the easiest way to do. And not only do you have to buy the tickets, you also have to validate those tickets. It's very important. When you get in a tram or a bus, you find a little red or orange colored box. You have to stick it in and the date will be printed on it. Because if you have a ticket but you don't validate it, it's as if you didn't have a ticket. So if the ticket checker comes and sees that it's not validated, you will still get a fine. So don't forget to do that. Budapest used to be a small town and it used to be surrounded by city walls, but when the city started to expand, they had to pull down the city walls because it prevented the expansion from happening. So the city wall used to be along the small boulevard, or to put it in other words, the small boulevard was built on the tracks of the old city wall. So in the foreign language these days. So now just take a look on your left. Can you see that old part over there? So that was the city wall. So about the language, English is now again the most popular foreign language. During the years of communism, however, it was Russian. Everybody had to learn Russian. Nobody spoke Russian, everybody hated Russian basically. That's how it was, and then when the changes took place around 1990, it became a free choice. So now it can be English, French, German, or basically whatever is available in our schools. This is Astoria Square. It's an important traffic junction here on the Pest side. After the Hotel Astoria, which you can see on your left-hand side, the first director of this hotel had worked at the Waldorf Astoria in New York, so that's where the name comes from. This is another important traffic junction. There is a metro or underground under us, and trams and buses stop here. And this is still the small boulevard. We're still driving along the small boulevard. The Jewish quarter is on our right-hand side. So in a few seconds' time, if you take a look on your right, you will see the great synagogue. Later on, we'll drive through the Jewish quarter, so I'll tell you more about the synagogue. We'll see it again. But now you can just catch a glimpse of it. Take a look on your right-hand side. You see the two bulbous domes and the beautiful building. Again, there's more to come on in connection with the synagogue later on. If you look straight ahead, you can see the Ferris wheel in the middle of Elizabeth Square. This Ferris wheel is a fun ride. If you buy the tickets, it costs €8. You get a 10-minute long ride. You turn around 3 times and you can take some nice pictures from the top. And the square is called Elizabeth Square after the Empress Elizabeth Sisi, who is a very positive figure in our history. I like her. You like Elizabeth? I can hear that. She was very well liked by the Hungarians as well, unlike her husband, the Emperor Franz Joseph. He didn't like Hungary, we didn't like him either. She liked Hungary, she liked our people, she learned to speak our language, so we liked her back, of course, and this is why we have several things named after her. I'm sure you heard a lot about her when you were in Vienna, but I'm sure they didn't tell you in Vienna that she didn't really like life in time there. She suffered because of the rigid rules of the etiquette and the That's how it happened that she became so popular. And if you'd like to take pictures from up high, in addition to the Ferris wheel, I can point out to you the dome of St. Stephen's Basilica in front of us. This is the biggest and most important Roman Catholic church we have. It's named after our first king, King Stephen, who introduced Christianity in the year 1000. You can go up to the top of the dome, from where you get a 360-degree view over the whole city. This is the back of the basilica, decorated by 13 statues, the 12 apostles and Jesus Christ. So this is one other option for you while you're here. And now we're turning into this beautiful wide avenue in front of us, lined with trees. This is Andrássy Avenue, ladies and gentlemen. This avenue was one of the main achievements of urban development that we had in connection with the millennium and the monarchy and all that. This avenue was modeled after the Champs-Élysées in Paris. It is the same layout but a bit smaller scale. It has 3 sections. This is the narrowest section. It'll gradually open up as we get closer and closer to the other end where we have Hero Square. As we drive along this avenue and as we drive around Budapest, I'd like to encourage you to look up on the buildings, look above the eye level, because you'll find some beautiful buildings, beautiful statues decorating the buildings, like the one on your left. Wow. Just look up on your left. There are many buildings like this, so it's worth looking up. One of the highlights is coming up on your left, one of my favorite buildings, the Hungarian State Opera House from 1884. It was modeled after the one in Vienna, but the Emperor Franz Joseph's condition was that it had to be smaller than the one in Vienna. It is indeed smaller, but it turned out to be more beautiful than the one in Vienna. And I'm not biased when I'm saying that, seriously. You can see statues of famous composers up on the very top. And here by the main entrance, just behind the white bus, you can see Franz Liszt's statue over there. If you'd like to tour the opera house, they have guided tours in 4 p.m. so you can come back and see the interior of this spectacular building. Again, that's one other option why you're here. This section of the avenue is also called the Broadway of Budapest. So in addition to the opera house, we have the operetta and many other theaters. There's a lot of cultural life and live entertainment taking place here in the streets left and right from us. And we also have a lot of beautiful cafes here, since Budapest was the city of cafes at the turn of the 19th, 20th century. All the writers, the actors, actresses, composers, they all had their favorite place where they were regulars. And as soon as they entered their favorite place, they were immediately served their favorite drink or dish. Writers were provided with paper, pen and ink, and a so-called writer's plate with cold cuts and bread and cheese. So as you can imagine, a lot of beautiful music and literature was inspired and written in these cafes. And nowadays there is a revival of the cafe society. Many of the old ones are reopening their doors and new ones are opening as well. So going to the cafes is still very much part of life here in Budapest. If you'd like to experience this lively, on the right hand side. And we're coming to the end of the first section of the avenue. There's a square in front of us. It's called Octagon Square due to the octagonal shape it has. And this square will be taking us to the middle section of the avenue, which will be left and right from us. Take a look at the tram coming from the left hand side, the yellow tram in front of us. These are some of the world's longest single car trams. They are made by Siemens. They're called Combino tram cars, and this is also Europe's longest and busiest tram line. There's another one coming from the right hand side. Look how long these trams are. More than 220,000 people use these trams on a daily basis. And entering into the middle section, if you look on the left side of the avenue, after about 4 blocks, you will see a grey building coming up with a black roof. This building was